Caitlin Clark gets a whole lot of unnecessary hate. I'm going to show a comment on the screen, and that comment is, I think, a representation of just a whole lot of hate that Caitlin Clark is getting. I think a lot of people have the issues with her turnovers. When people who don't watch the games, unlike me, I actually have watched all of Caitlin Clark's games of her young WNBA career. I might not be able to say that for much longer, but I will say it until I cannot no more. Of Caitlin Clark's WNBA career, I've watched every single game. So if you want to talk about Caitlin Clark and why you don't think she's good, or why you do think she's already the GOAT, or whatever your talking point is, and I want to refute you on it, whatever it might be, I'm going to back it up on the fact that of her WNBA career, I've watched every single game. And until I can't say that, I will say it. And I have watched every game. The people that don't watch the games, they go and check the box score, and they're like, oh, well, she finally had a decent game. She's finally getting into a rhythm, like, ESPN said. And she had 22 points, right? But then they're looking at the box score, and they say, oh, well, she had 8 assists, but she also had 8 turnovers. And they just assume that she did not impact the game in a good way. And they assume that she's not as good as they say. They assume she's a bust. They assume she's trash. They assume we hyped her up and we got her head inflated just for her to be garbage. And whatever it is that people want to say, it's not true. She actually had a really great game. This is by far the best game I've seen from her all season. This is the best game we've seen from her all season. And I want to talk about the turnover issue, because people don't seem to understand why she's getting turnovers. And I could give you a few decent reasons why I think she is getting turnovers. And there's 2 reasons why I think she's getting a lot of turnovers. The first reason is that her teammates just are not catching the ball. I think there were about 3 turnovers in this past game they played today that Caitlin Clark was at fault for. The other 5 was really just her teammates not catching the ball. And I don't want to sit there and say her teammates should be fired, or they suck and they literally are just like not catching the ball. It is literal. They literally are not just catching the ball, but it's not just like the ball's right in front of them and they're just not getting it. It's they're not prepared for it, and they're not being observant. It's not in their heads that Caitlin Clark would make some of the passes that she's making. She plays a totally different style of basketball than anybody else in the WNBA I've seen so far. But I mean, we've only seen 2 games so far, and I'm saying that as a Indiana Fever watcher, because I have not watched any other WNBA teams besides the Liberty and the Sun. At this point, that's crazy, but it's the truth. And WNBA teams don't seem to get the ball out in the way she does, but Caitlin Clark does do it. And her teammates are not prepared for her to throw these full court passes when she gets the rebound from the backboard, takes 2 dribbles, and then she passing it all the way to the other goal. They're not expecting that. And so it's not that her passes aren't good and that they're not effective passes and that she's throwing it out of bounds. And it's also not that they're not they're looking right at the ball and they're not catching it. The real issue is that they're not prepared for it. They're not even thinking she's going to pass it. And so the lack of preparation is the issue. They don't know Caitlin. It really goes back to chemistry, actually. That's the main issue. They're not acquainted with each other in the right way. I guarantee in maybe a month or 2, Caitlin Clark will be averaging half the turnovers at least as she is right now. The reason that'll be the case is because her teammates will understand her more, and they'll be able to gauge when she's going to make passes. There's a lot of players like Tyrese Halliburton. He's a guy I've been watching a lot. He is a very effective player. His assist percentage is probably very high right now, but I don't have it off the top of my head. But he usually, when he makes passes, he doesn't get a turnover. Along with Nikola Jokic. He had 13 assists with 0 turnovers the other day. The reason guys like Jokic and Halliburton make a lot of great passes is not just because every single pass they make is right on the money, but it's because their teammates know the way they're going to play. They have this chemistry. They play as a team. Every single great passer plays in a great offense. You're not going to be able to put a guy on the San Antonio Spurs and expect him to average 14, 15 assists, which is what a lot of people think Trae Young's going to do if he gets traded to the Spurs. No, they have to build chemistry. In chemistry, your guys are going to be able to, and in this case, your girls will be able to understand what passes you're going to make and try to be at the right spot to catch the pass. So once that happens, Caitlin Clark's turnovers will go down a lot. A lot of her turnovers are just her teammates not being ready for the ball. And that is a thing that I'm going to keep saying. And I'm not just saying it as an excuse. I'm not over here I'm not trying to wife up Caitlin Clark, I'm not a simp like most of you weirdo internet people. Like, bro, she has a husband. I'm not on here trying to simp for Caitlin Clark. I'm just speaking facts. I'm not like a Caitlin Clark super fan. It's just the truth, and I'm gonna keep saying it. If you're gonna go in the comment section talking about she had 8 turnovers, so her game was bad. No, she had an amazing game. This is that the game she played today was amazing. It was very. I mean, to the fact that I was watching the WNBA in the first place. No offense to any WNBA watchers. I never watched the WNBA before Caitlin Clark. I never watched female college basketball before Caitlin Clark. So the fact that I'm here is crazy. The fact that I was in there in the third quarter watching the Fever play when they were down 20 points is because of Caitlin Clark, because she was still doing crazy stuff. She was making crazy passes, hitting crazy shots, and she's worth watching. And so the fact that I'm even here is crazy. It's for Caitlin, and I'm going to advocate the idea that she had a great game when she, in fact, did have a great game. When you're saying she had a bad game because she had 8 turnovers when the turnovers aren't really her fault, it's crazy. The second reason, because that was the first reason, the second reason why she's getting so many turnovers is that a lot of people who are saying this are NBA fans, and I'm an NBA fan myself. And so when I watched the first game where she had 20 and 10 turnovers, it's not 20 and 10 assists or rebounds, 20 and 10 turnovers. When she had that, you know, when you look at 10 turnovers for a WNBA player, it's easy to just compare that to 10 turnovers for like Steph Curry. It's not the same thing. WNBA players, they tend to just have more turnovers in general. Women just tend to turn the ball over because they don't throw as hard as men. They're not as strong as men. You can't expect Caitlin Clark to make the same quality passes as LeBron James. LeBron is 6'8", like 450 pounds. Like, he's a big man. And Caitlin Clark is strong. I'm sure she could beat me in a freaking arm wrestle, but not LeBron. And when you're looking at the most freakiest athletes in America and you're comparing WNBA players to them in terms of how hard and far their passes are going to go, that's ridiculous. WNBA players are going to have more turnovers just because they're not as strong and as firm with the basketball. It's nothing against them. It's just genetics. It's kind of physics, you know? So you'd be stupid to assume that Caitlin Clark is going to go 5 games in a row with no turnover. She's going to turn over the ball. It's not because every single pass she's being lackluster. She's just not as strong. Passes aren't going to go as far. They're not going to be as hard. So the defense has an advantage there because it's easier to sit in place and wait for a pass to come to you when, you know, the pass isn't as strong and as hard. It's just the truth. And it's what you have to understand. These people saying that 8 turnovers is so bad, 8 turnovers in the WNBA is like probably 5 or 6 in the NBA. There's just more turnovers that happen. If you watch the game, you watch a Pacers-Knicks games, there's barely any turnovers going on compared to a WNBA game. Now, granted, WNBA games are going to have more turnovers because the games are longer and they're more drawn out and there's more possessions, right? But I'm saying possession by possession, or probably like play by play, WNBA would have more turnovers. Does that make any sense? Because if you turn it over, then doesn't the play end? Anyway, yeah. So that's what I think about Caitlin Clark's turnover issues. Another thing I want to talk about is her team. Her team freaking sucks. And I don't know why people keep using this argument that she's 0-3. I thought she was going to come in and be the GOAT. She's 0-3. She hasn't won a game. Bro, it's the reason they got the number 1 pick. Same people doing this to Caitlin are not doing this to Wemby because it doesn't make sense. You're not going to expect the number 1 overall pick to come in and have the best team in the NBA and win all the games because there's the reason they got the number 1 overall pick. When the Bulls first got Jordan, they weren't freaking cold, and I don't have any proof to back that up because I wasn't watching the Bulls when they first got Jordan. I was not alive, but I guarantee they were not a championship. I mean, I know that for a fact. They weren't a championship team. I can say that it's with proof backing me. They weren't no freaking, you know, crazy good team. I don't know what they were, but they weren't no championship team first year. LeBron, the Cavs, sucked when they first got Bron. They sucked. You don't get the number 1 overall pick unless you get like some Atlanta Hawks this year and expect the number 1 pick to come in and be cold. The Fever freaking sucked last season. They're going to suck this season with Caitlin, and they're just double teaming her. The fact that she can put up 22 and 8 with double teaming on 54% from the field, I mean, that's... Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to get out of here because the Mavs and the Thunder play. If you're seeing this video, I got Mavs winning tonight in 6, but I might be wrong. I'll see y'all later. My camera's gonna die. Hope you guys enjoyed. I certainly did.